Thank you. Am I good on sound? Everybody can hear me? The introduction is always the most awkward part. I hate standing there listening to my own bio. I try and shorten it every time I do one of these. So I am going to be here through the evening. So I'm going to spend probably about 40, 45 minutes going through this presentation. We'll leave 10 to 15 minutes at the end for Q&A. But if there's something you want to talk about afterwards, I'm going to be around throughout the day, and then I'll be there for the event tonight. So feel free to come up to me and introduce yourself. I'd love to hear your story as well. So study after study tells us that marketers are under increasing pressure to deliver a return on investment, to connect their activities, their dollars, to bottom line results. Those same studies, though, tell us that marketers are largely underprepared and underperforming. I hope that the people in this room today are going to help us change that dynamic in the industry. When we look at why is that happening, one of the big reasons is the rate of change. So 76% of marketers say that marketing has changed more in the past 2 years than in the past 50. Now, technology plays an enormous role in that, and the rate of how many new applications come out, the way Facebook and Google change their methodologies, all of those things have an enormous impact on us as marketers. But more than anything, consumer behavior is what's changing, what's causing the change in the industry. So if we think about a traditional buying cycle, a traditional customer journey, there would be a stimulus. And this is from Google. There's a great site called Think with Google. If you haven't looked at it, it's a great resource. They put out some very interesting information. But this is going back to about 2012 when they released the Zero Moment of Truth study. So in traditional marketing, there would be a stimulus. It could be a direct mail piece. It could be a phone call. It could be a print ad. It could be something you hear on the radio. It could be an article you read, something that makes someone aware of a brand, a product, or a service. Then people would make a buying decision. They would see something they like. They may compare it to one or two other products, but they would go out and they would make a purchase decision. Then the second moment of truth, so that was the first moment of truth, the second moment of truth is their experience with that product. They like it, they refer other people to it, they talk about it, they buy again themselves. Well, what's happened is this zero moment of truth. In between where that stimulus occurs and where that first moment of truth occurs, we now have these connected consumers who will go and look for as much information as possible before making a buying decision. So a current example for me is I'm thinking about putting a patio on the back of our house. Historically, I may have just seen the mailers you get from landscaping companies, concrete companies, and I may have just called one or two of them, got pricing, and that'd be the end of it. My search actually started on Facebook. Thinking about putting a patio in, has anybody done one? Thinking about stamped concrete, anybody have any providers they would recommend? From that, I got about 10 recommendations of companies to look at. So okay, so that's my starting point. Then I do a search for Cleveland landscaping companies. I go to their websites. Some of them are really, really bad. I think, wow, I should probably reach out to some of these people for business development and offer to help them improve their brands. It's my first thought as a marketer, and then I throw that aside. No, stay focused. So then I look for social proof. So not only do I go to their websites, I then will click on their little Twitter icon and their Facebook icon, and I'll see, are they active? Do they share anything? Does their Facebook page have positive testimonials? Maybe I'll go to Angie's List, a consumer review site. I have yet to even indicate to this company I have any interest in a patio, but I have now looked at 5, 6, 7 resources to try and help me make a decision and find a provider. That's the zero moment of truth. And I'm doing this across a bunch of devices, and I'm bouncing around, and it's really hard to follow me as a consumer. So as marketers, we now have to think about the fact that consumers have sort of taken control. On top of that, it's a very digital-based consumer audience. 90% of media interactions every day happen across screens. And this may be desktop, could be televisions, tablets, smartphones. And what happens is people are either sequentially looking for information, so I may start my search for that patio provider on my desktop at work. I go home at night, I maybe see an ad about it. I jump on my phone because that's what happens to be next to me at the time. I do a quick internet search. Maybe I go back over to my iPad and I'm bouncing around. Or I'm simultaneously doing that. I see an ad, and as I'm seeing that ad, I'm like, oh, let me check out their website. So I am, as a consumer, I'm now doing all of these things. And it's only getting more dramatic. So we think, again, that rate of change. Now we have smartwatches. We have the Internet of Things where companies want to know everything you're doing. They want to know your behaviors. They want to be able to market to you in the ways you want to be marketed to. Cars is another interesting area where those are becoming smarter. All of these become touch points for brands to reach consumers. But it's not just in the B2C world. It's not just reaching consumers. In the B2B world, Forrester tells us that a buyer may be 2/3 to 90% of the way through their journey before they ever reach out to the company. So if you sell to other businesses, or if the company you work with sells to other businesses, those business consumers act just like they do in their consumer life in the business world. They're going to go look for a bunch of information before they make buying decisions on the software side, or in a product side, or in a service side when it comes to a business environment. So what's happening is it's changing the ways brands have to attract, convert, delight these people. They expect different experiences. And so we're moving away from this very outbound-centric model of marketing where we were trying to interrupt people and capture their attention and stop them from what they were doing and make them look at us and our company and our brand and our products. And now we're trying to draw them in as they go through this process. So this is a visual image of the customer journey from Google. It's a very simplistic way to look at it. But in the traditional model, marketers and brands tend to focus on that right side. They were focusing when someone was ready to make a buying decision, sort of that intent to decision phase. So if you think about the way a lot of websites work, what do you see when you get there? Request a quote, schedule a consultation, buy now. You're assuming I'm actually ready to make a decision. Well, what we know, what we see from the different reports, is that most people are spending the vast majority of their time much earlier in that process. They're in the awareness to consideration phase. So in the awareness phase, I'm generally aware I may put a patio in my backyard. I haven't really thought about doing it. I'm just thinking that would be nice to have. Then when I move into the consideration phase, I'm not going to start doing a little research. I'm going to start thinking, what are the options? Who can I talk to? What sites should I even go to help me decide? I'm not ready to actually get somebody out to give me a quote. So that's the mind shift that's required from a marketing standpoint. The other dynamic here, though, is, again, we have these consumers that have lots of devices. They have lots of ways to consume information. And so it doesn't follow this nice, easy, linear path like we as marketers would love to think they follow. It looks something more like this, which actually makes no sense. And that's the whole point of this visual, is that a consumer may start. I may think about that patio, and I may just say, forget it, I'll do it in the fall. And I may stop. And then come fall, I'm going to come back to the beginning of that journey. I'm going to restart looking at the companies I thought about. And I'm going to kind of go through this more cyclical model. And as a marketer, it becomes harder and harder to track where people are in that process. So what we've entered is what we like to call this age of content, context, and the customer experience. So this is why you hear content marketing becoming such a large trend in the industry, why so many people talk about it, and why it's gotten so many followers, and so much budget is now being dedicated to content. Think of it as the Amazonification of marketing. So when you buy from Amazon, the reason Amazon is so good is they know what you look at, they know what you've bought, they know when you look at it, they can probably predict better than you can what you're going to buy next. And the reason is because they have all that knowledge. And a lot of corporate marketers are now gaining that same type of capability. Content management systems are being built to where you can look at everything someone has done on your site, every time they've downloaded a piece of content, every time they've completed a contact form, and you're using that information. You're drawing them in with the content like blog posts, ebooks, webinars, but then you're using the context of their behavior to start targeting them in a much more personalized way. So when I was coming up, I started in the industry in 2000. One of the first books I read was called The End of Marketing as We Know It by Sergio Zeman. He was the chief marketing officer of Coca-Cola in the 80s and 90s. He defined marketing as selling more things to more people more often for more money. That's what your job was as a marketer, was to sell. It was to help sales sell. It was to bring more people in to sell. It was to get them to try the product for the first time. I would argue that today we've moved to a new imperative. It's to create more value for more people more often. So when they do finally get through that journey and they decide on a brand, a product, or a service, they choose yours. An example of this that I'll reference a couple times throughout is HubSpot. And we were HubSpot's first partner agency back in 2008, so I have kind of an intimate knowledge of this software. Competing softwares, if you're not familiar with this space, would be like Marketo, Pardot, Eloqua. Those are some of the names you would hear. But HubSpot's a perfect example. If you're on their homepage and you scroll down, you see case studies, so validation from third parties about the value of what they do. You see blog posts, training curriculum, free ebooks. They're drawing you in with content. They know you may not ready to be buying, but they're giving you information to help nurture you along. And at the bottom, you see the social proof, and you realize they've actually built up this massive audience, so they're not reliant anymore on having to buy impressions. They're not having to get in front of people through paying for it. If they want to do something, if they want to share something, they have a massive audience to do it for. So that everyone is not going to build what HubSpot has built. If you're not familiar with them, they have a market capitalization of $1.8 billion. They started in 2007, 2006. They went public in fall of last year. Prior to that, they'd raised about $125 million. So they have a massive war chest to be doing what they're doing, and they're really smart about it. But on a low scale level, this is what a lot of what we're talking about. It's this idea of creating content, educating, nurturing, creating value, and helping to move people through the buying process. So if we know marketing is changing, and we know the studies are there to tell us it, we can look at all the technology innovations, we can see the way consumers are behaving, why aren't marketers moving fast enough? What are the reasons that keep them there? Now, there are a lot of them. There's internal politics, there's silos, there's complacency, but one of the biggest ones is accountability. The reality is that a lot of marketing throughout history hasn't had to be held accountable to impacting the bottom line. In the PR world, where I originally came up from, it was all about impressions and ad equivalency and PR value and all these things that sound nice and make people feel good, but at the end of the day, they really don't drive the bottom line. They don't drive business results. It's hard to make that connection. Advertising, same way. It's, how many people are we in front of? It wasn't always how many sales did it drive. So what we're moving towards, though, is people have had a very difficult time quantitatively proving the impact. 36% on long-term, or 36% on short-term, 29% on long-term, getting myself confused. So keep this in mind when we get later on into the presentation. This becomes very relevant because part of the challenge with marketers of getting budget approval, getting the support you need internally to make changes to try and market in different ways, some of it comes back to this. On average, marketers only depend on data for 11% of customer-related decisions. Marketers haven't come up as data geeks. We haven't been extremely tech-savvy, extremely analytical. So we've been a little bit behind in our ability to show the value of what we do. And so what I always like to say is marketers leave a lot of value on the table. The things you're doing that may have tremendous value for the organization, if you're not able to connect it to the impact it's having in the company, you're not taking credit for a lot of the value you're creating. B2B marketers say just 9% of CEOs and 6% of CFOs use marketing data to help set corporate direction. So again, if you're trying to convince the C-suite that you want to do more with social, you want to do more with content, you want to be more integrated in your approach, a lot of the times the C-suite wants data. Like, okay, prove to me why we should do this. Show me numbers. Explain to me why I should open up the budgets and help you. So what we're going to talk about is we're going to go through 3 areas of how to be more performance-driven, how to use data, how to use metrics and analytics to actually help you achieve these things and to move past some of those challenges that marketers have previously had. We'll start with the assessment. So I like to think of a marketing assessment as the strategy gateway. It's the time where you stop and you look, and this often happens with us at the initiation of a client relationship, but with organizations you can really do it at any time. It's all about trying to align the expectations for growth. So what are the goals of the organization? Are they realistic? And then aligning it with the potential, the forecasting potential. So we'll a lot of times have people come to us and say, we want to increase lead volume 50% in the next 6 months. And we say, okay, and 5 years ago I may have just stopped and said, all right, we'll figure it out. If you've got a budget, we'll figure out how to do it. And what we quickly realized was everybody is so different. Every organization is so different. The foundations they have in place are different. The teams, the technology, the infrastructure, the sales team, all of these variables affect a marketer's ability to actually deliver on these things. So we used to use SurveyMonkey to do an assessment of people up front. We would try and go through and look at these like 30 or 40 different factors. Someone would complete it and then they would get a thank you page. There was no really visualization on their end. So in 2012, we built a tool to take a different approach to it. So I put this up here because it's a free tool. If you'd like to use it as a guide to help you try and do an assessment, you're welcome to use it. And what it does is it walks you through 10 sections, and it goes through 132 factors that are all 0 to 10 ratings. And then from there, it gives you a visualization of how your organization scores. So the 10 areas that it assesses are up here on the site. And we took a sample size of 318. There's about 18 or 1900 people have used this, so we have a pretty good wealth of data to now look at of how organizations rate themselves across these different areas. So business cores and marketing cores, sort of the foundational pieces, tend to score best. And then you can see where it sort of tails off. What I want to focus on for this portion is just these two core areas of talent and technology, because this is where we see some of the greatest opportunities for organizations to move forward, but also some of the biggest weaknesses right now. When I was doing the research for the new book, The Performance Blueprint, I came across a lady named Anita Newton. Anita has told a story of how she was working at a major enterprise, a Fortune 500 company, and she was in marketing, and over one holiday, the marketing team ran a very expensive advertisement, and she saw it, and she was blown away with the fact there was no CTA. It didn't really align with the business goals, and she actually was motivated enough to fire off an email saying, what are we doing here? We just spent how much money on this ad that we have no way of measuring its effectiveness. And her boss actually said, okay, do something different. Whatever you want to spend, go ahead. In the next 2 weeks, put a plan together and let's do something. And she realized at that moment that she knew something different needed to be done, but she relied on outside agencies to do a lot of the digital stuff. She had a team of people that could do A/B testing and landing page conversions and Facebook ads and all these things she knew that would probably be more effective. She actually didn't know how to do it. So she left, and this is a quote from her. I was a classically trained marketer, cut my teeth at Procter & Gamble, negotiated multi-million-dollar deals, and received an MBA from Harvard Business School. I was a fossil, a senior marketing executive who was doomed to extinction. And so in her mid-30s, she left that Fortune 500 company and she challenged herself to go work at startups, to become sort of this integrated marketer herself where she could learn these multiple skill sets and become more valuable and be able to impact an organization more. But what we see is Anita's not alone. 75% of marketers say their lack of skills is impacting revenue in some way. 90%, this is from Capgemini, 90% of companies lack necessary digital skills in key areas of social, mobile, internal social networks, process automation, performance monitoring, analysis. Largely the things that have become so critical are the areas where a lot of organizations struggle. Data analysis is a really interesting one, again, because a lot of marketers aren't trained with this coming out of school. But it's becoming so powerful because there's data for everything. Like we were saying at the beginning, when a consumer comes to a website, you can actually, if you have the right tools, you can tell the IP address of where they're coming from, so you can actually know what company they're with. If you're trying to sell to a specific company, you just go into the log and look and see, did someone from that company come to the site today? If they did, which pages did they look at? How long did they spend on each page? All of this data is readily available and it doesn't even cost that much. Marketers just have to know what to do with it. Then if they actually complete a form on your site and you get their name and email address and you've cookied their computer, now a whole world opens up to you because now you know the individual person, and you can even set alerts saying, if this person comes back and they go to our pricing page, send me an email alert or a text message because I want to call them within 20 minutes. That's all extremely possible today with technology. So one of the core traits or skill sets that's becoming very important to marketers is the ability to look at data and figure out what it means to align goals with business goals, the marketing goals with business goals. So what's happening is there's a talent war emerging. There is this very limited supply of these people who are actually capable of doing this. And this is why I say to everyone in this room, you're in a very good spot. You're taking the initiative to actually continue your learning and education, to learn these new capabilities. A lot of marketers aren't. They're just staying overwhelmed by it. They don't want to have to learn all this new tech. But you have publishers, you have agencies, you have corporations, you have nonprofits. Everybody's trying to find these multifaceted employees who can work across these multiple disciplines. These people who can envision on a strategic level, but execute on a tactical level as well. That Anita's story, she knew what she needed to do, but she couldn't actually do it. And so those people who become trained in these areas, who can actually truly be integrative marketing professionals, they hold tremendous value in today's market because they're very hard to find. So what I say in one of the recurring themes of the new book is there's never been a better time to be a marketer. It is overwhelming, and it's honestly quite scary at times because it's hard to keep up with everything that's going on. But for the people that do, that actually have the motivation, that intrinsic motivation to keep up and to challenge themselves to keep learning and to not only get the classroom learning, but to go out and get inbound marketing certification and complete Google Analytics training, all these things that are available to us free or at a very, very low cost, it just differentiates you in the market as a professional. Has anybody seen this picture before? Anybody familiar with this? Okay, this is Scott Brinker's marketing technology landscape. So Scott Brinker runs a company called Ion Interactive, and he also is the spearhead behind the MarTech conference, which just started last year. He has a blog called Chief Martech. So for probably about 5 years or 6 years, he's been talking about the integration of marketing and technology. You can't make out what each of those colored dots are, but they are a company. Each one of those is a marketing technology software brand. When Scott first did this in 2011, there was about 250 of those little colored dots. The next year, there's about 350. He took a year off. Then there was 950. And then in 12 months' time, there was almost 1,900. So when we think about that rate of change, this is representative of what is happening. Our ability as marketers to achieve and unlock performance potential is largely based on the technology we use to do it. But this is how fast marketing technology is moving. And if we zoom in just on that top right quadrant, this is all the stuff that has to do with the operations, but a lot of the performance stuff. So there, if you look at it, you'll see on the right-hand side, performance and attribution, dashboards and visualization, web and mobile analytics, business intelligence, data science. All of those vendors all have technology that can help you as a marketer do your job in a better way. But marketers aren't trained to do this. We're not marketing technologists by trade or even by education. Down in the bottom left, you see marketing automation, which is, again, one of the more popular spaces now because of the success of a Marketo and a HubSpot, Pardot, Eloqua. They have all sort of raised awareness of that part of it, but that's just such a small piece of the overall spectrum. And what the marketing score data tells us is that most marketers, most organizations are underutilizing. They either don't have this technology or they're severely underutilizing it. And that's limiting their ability to be successful, to make an impact on their business. The couple I highlighted there, so this is an average score across the 318 sample size we looked at. 0 to 10, marketing analytics is a 4.5 and marketing automation a 3.7. That's how would they rate their utilization of, the strength of their utilization of. So what we see is a lot of times marketers are struggling because they just don't have the right tech or they're not using the tech in the right way. But marketers are being thrust into this position where they have to take a leadership role in assessing, selecting, onboarding, and then managing this marketing technology. If you think about those ones on the previous slide, there's a content management system that IT used to own, but now a lot of times marketing owns it. If you get inbound calls to your company, you may have call tracking technology to figure out where those calls originated from and how valuable they are. Analytics, automation, all of these things, email marketing, they're required to do the job of a marketer, and to integrate them all is quite a challenge. But the good news is there's new tools and platforms popping up to help do this. So if you're in a position where you are responsible for marketing technology or you want to learn more about it, G2 Crowd is a really good site. It's an online review site where people who use the software post reviews about how good the software is. So let's say you all of a sudden have to figure out what content management system to use or what email marketer to use. You can go to G2 Crowd, type in the type of software you're looking for or search by category, and it'll actually pop up and give you little quadrants like you would see from an analyst firm. And then you can click into any one of those and see actual user reviews of the technology. So again, the market accelerates forward, and then the technology in some cases is the cause of that acceleration, but in some cases the technology tries to catch up to help us understand what this all means and do our jobs better. So some questions to consider when you're thinking about doing an assessment of your company. Do you have the right talent, tech, and strategy to achieve performance goals? That's really the fundamental question to be asking. Do we have the right people in place? Do we have the right tech in place? Because you're not going to build an optimal strategy if you're missing those two pieces of the equation. So that kind of gap analysis is a good place to start. are expectations for growth in line with what you're capable of achieving? As marketers, we're oftentimes thrown into hit this goal, and you don't get to ask questions and figure out, is that actually doable? But in a perfect world, you try and sit and think, okay, is that a realistic goal? What does it take? So if we want to get 20 new sales a month, how many new visitors to the site does that require? How many of those need to become leads, and how many of those will become sales? You actually think through that process. Are there significant weaknesses in your business cores, marketing cores? So, for example, is the company financially unstable? Are they going to do desperate things no matter how good of a strategy we put in place because they just aren't financially stable? Is the product bad? Like, as a marketer, no matter what we do, is the experience someone has with the company going to be poor because the product or service really isn't that good? And we don't really have a marketing problem, we have a business problem. And so those are really important things to think about. Are the resources and campaigns aligned with priority goals? We'll touch on that in the next section. What existing assets can be leveraged to accelerate success? So what do you have that's a really strong asset that can really help marketing move forward quickly? So the next phase is building a marketing scorecard, and sort of that idea of data without analysis is just noise. We all have tons of data. You get data from social media sites, you get data from your website, you get data from the CRM, from sales. There's data coming from everywhere. But the challenge to marketers is to figure out what to do with that, how to visualize it, how to make it relevant, and then how do we actually turn this into action. IBM says 94% of chief marketers believe analytics will play a big role in reaching their goals, yet only 18% say their organizations are in a position to do it. A mere 9% of marketers strongly agree with the statement, I know our digital marketing is working. Well, if you go back to that first graph of proving long-term and short-term quantitatively success, this makes a lot of sense. Like, they're not measuring it. They don't know if it is or not. And what we've found and what research has validated is it's because marketers are really, really good at telling you what they did. They're good at showing you a task list and saying we did these 10 things on this list. It's because a lot of marketing has been about deliverables. We finished that project and we delivered it. It's not our job to now say how does that impact the results of the company. So marketers historically, their dashboards have been really activity dashboards, not metrics-driven dashboards. So we're going to go through just 3 quick steps you can take. Now in the book there's a whole chapter dedicated to this, so you can dive further into it, but I'm going to focus on setting goals, the KPIs or the key performance indicators, and then customizing how your scorecard funnel would look. We try and break concepts down as simplistically as possible. So if you think about the traditional funnel, it usually stops at that sales. Like any funnel you see goes some variation of brand, leads, sales, and then loyalty is just sort of forgotten or thrown off to customer service. In our world, there's 4 main goals that you look to achieve as a marketer. Building brand is all about raising awareness, getting more people into the top of the funnel. Then generating leads, helping to convert those leads into sales. Now the marketer's job may not actually be making that conversion, that's often sales, but marketer can play an increasing role there. And then at the bottom, increasing loyalty. What our data shows is if you say rate these 4 areas as high, medium, or low priority, 46% say building brand is a high priority, 86% say lead gen is high, 85% say converting sales is a high priority, and 51% increasing loyalty. So we know the middle of the funnel matters. Like that's where a lot of marketers, they're trying to prove their value, so they want to be able to demonstrate that they're actually bringing leads in and helping to convert them. The other kind of cool way, if you start breaking down what you're doing into these 4 overarching areas or some variation of, is you can do a quick analysis saying, well, where is our money going? So if we look at it and say the most important thing to us, and this is where we go back to that aligning expectations and potential, it's all about aligning. Are we doing what we're trying to do? If you tell me that the most important thing to you is lead generation, but your resource allocation looks like this, then there's a misalignment of budget. And you may need to actually start thinking about, okay, so let's start with where's our money going, and let's rethink this because lead gen is actually our most important thing. So when you get into figuring out, okay, well, what metrics should we actually measure then? What are the most important metrics at each part of that funnel? These are by no means the standard ones for everybody, but they're a good starting point. So at the top of the funnel, it's often about how many visitors are we getting to the site. Now, if you're a retail store, it may be like how many visitors are we getting to the store, but it's all about how many new people are we bringing in. It might be about how many subscribers are we getting, how many email addresses are we capturing, how many people are following us on social media. None of those directly connect to sales, but we know that those are all required to help us get more to that middle of the funnel. Then we get into the lead phase. It's not only about the volume of leads, so how many new leads are coming in, but the quality of them. Every lead is definitely not created equal. Then from there, lead to sale conversion rates, cost of acquisition is often a really important one. And on the loyalty side, lifetime value, retention rates, and recurring revenue. Now what we're seeing more and more is we actually get marketing and sales agreements. So sales will say, in order for us to hit our goals, we need 100 highly qualified leads. I don't need 1,000 really bad leads, I need 100 really good ones. So marketing will actually sign a contract with sales saying, if you tell us what a great lead looks like to you, we will do the work to deliver 100 of those every month. And those teams work in unison in true integration in an agreement of, here's what sales needs, here's what marketing has to deliver. Now marketing's job is to figure out how to do that, and then sales' job is to turn them into the conversions. And then depending on how your organization is structured, loyalty may or may not fall under marketing's realm. So this is, you can go to this bit.ly, it's a free download. It's one of the things that was created as a complement to this book. Think of it as like a checklist. So if you're going through and planning and you're trying to think through these different phases of the funnel, these are just some standard metrics that may be relevant to you. So we actually do use this internally. Like if I'm sitting down and building a plan for a client or for the agency, I'll go through this checklist and say, okay, are any of these metrics relevant? And then in the next section, there's actually one of these related to activities as well. And that same URL will get you those. And I'll make these slides available. So if there's anything in here you're missing, I'll make sure you can get those later. And then this is, and I apologize, you can't really make this out, especially the right-hand side, but this is what a scorecard actually looks like in some cases. So we've kind of tailored how our clients' scorecards work, but this is generally what they would look like. So in the left-hand column, we're picking a single primary goal for each stage of the funnel. So at the top, it's the number of visitors that come in, then into the number of leads, number of new customers, and in this case, recurring revenue is the most important bottom number. And then on the right-hand side are metrics that support that. So if I, at a quick glance, see leads were down 20% last month, then I can come over to the ones on the right and see, well, why? Was it organic leads that were down? Was it referral visits that were down? And that can actually then help us diagnose problems. If you have a solution like HubSpot, Marketo, Pardot, Eloqua, Acton, they're usually going to have dashboards that are based on performance, and these can shortcut a lot of the time and energy you need to put into doing scorecards. But this is an example of what HubSpots look like. If you go into their dashboard, it shows visits, contacts, new customers, revenue. It'll give you all that data right away. If you're not using that and you just want a free solution, Google Analytics, most companies have Google Analytics already. If you're trying to really evolve your skill set, I would highly recommend taking Google Analytics training. It's free. It takes probably 20, 30 hours to complete. It's all just online videos, like 5-7 minute videos. And then you can, I think it's $50, you can get certified at the end, take a quick test. We require all of our employees to actually go through and do that. So get familiar with how to use Google Analytics, but to make it really simple on you, they actually have a crowdsourced gallery. So if you're in Google Analytics, you can go to this site, and the URL is down there again. I'll make sure the deck is available. But they have all these customized dashboards that you can just grab and drop into your site, and in seconds you can have a whole new way of looking at your data. The other thing Google Analytics offers, and again it's free, is to automate email reports. You can go in, any report you're looking at, click on that email button. It'll ask you how frequently do you want it. Do you want an Excel, CSV, PDF? And then you can just send it to whomever you want. If you're an agency or consultant, you can have your client receive these weekly. If you're a large enterprise, you're probably actually looking at business intelligence tools, something much bigger, a larger scale solution. Because again, you have data coming in from all these different sources. And so these tools, these are just a selection of the ones that are available. They will take that data from all these different places and they will create visualized dashboards for you. So if you're in a larger enterprise, you're probably looking at solutions like this to help you build your scorecards. The other one, I will take a sip of water for a second and let you read this, and I'll explain why it's highly relevant in a moment. So as you're finishing up, this is what it means to take data and turn it into insights or intelligence. It's not just saying traffic was up, traffic was down. It's why. It gives why. The real key to this, when we think about how overwhelming all this is to marketers, this was written by a computer in 3 seconds, a 20-page report. Artificial intelligence is actually being used to take some of the burden off of marketers. So if you think about what Watson did with what IBM did with Watson, that is actually starting to trickle into the marketing realm. There's a company called Automated Insights. They were just acquired a few months ago for $70 million. They have a product called Wordsmith, and all you do is you connect it to your Google Analytics account, and it will produce and analyze reports for you. And then as a marketer, all you're doing is looking at that information that machine has provided to you, and then you just add a human layer over it, and you can customize it however you want and add your logo. But these sort of tools, again, if you think about how fast tech is moving, these sort of tools are becoming critical. And then the last section I'm going to go into here is building a game plan. So how do we take this information, these scorecards, and actually build performance-driven campaigns? This is how we like to think about marketing. We have data. We have all this raw data. We need to figure out what it means, gather insights from it, turn it into intelligence. Then we need to create the actions, the strategies as a result of it, and then measure the outcomes. Most marketers are really good at that action phase. Again, going back to we know what to do instinctively. Sometimes we use data to support it. Most times it's based on our experience. We build plans, we activate it. We don't always excel at saying how it produced results. Since we're at Integrated Marketing Communications Conference, it's kind of a foregone conclusion to you guys, but consumers don't care where marketing is coming from. They don't think in silos. They don't know which department they're dealing with. If they go to the Facebook page and complain about something, or if they call customer service, or if they read an ebook, they have a unified, singular brand experience. And each touch point with that marketer is a chance to win or lose them, or gain additional referrals from them. Silos don't work in the marketing world today. It's all truly about integration and how well teams internally work together, how well information is passed along, and how successfully we act on that information in a unified way. So this is kind of like the new marketing mix. On the right-hand side, the ways we do this hasn't really changed. I mean, there's some new digital things that are involved. Social's obviously relevant. Content's becoming more important. But it's a blend of traditional and digital. It's all about, well, what matters to the consumer. How do they decide? The real key is that converged media, that some of it is, the owned media is where things we control, our website, our list, that's owned media. We can market to those people anytime we want through our own channels. Paid media is, we got to buy it. It could be digital, it could be print, it could be radio, it could be TV. That doesn't matter. It's all about paying to get them because you don't own that audience. And then earned media is really PR. It's third parties saying you're great, or it could be in social, someone talking about your company. And it's all about converge. None of those on their own will draw success for your organization. So we go back to this idea of a funnel, and we look at it in a B2B software. So this is some metrics on the left that would be common for a B2B software company. At the top, you may have web sessions, subscribers, and placements. Well, the things you would maybe do there to create those and to have success with those metrics would be blogging, social, analyst relations, and media relations. In the middle, it's all about qualified leads, free trials, demo requests, and there you're looking at things like premium content, webinars, ebooks, white papers, case studies. You're running lead nurturing email campaigns through your automation program or email marketing solution. Maybe you're doing a partner program to sell through agency partners. So the whole point of this is, this isn't all digital, it's not all social, it's not all content. You're thinking of an integrated approach as you get into the sales side. Maybe you're doing webinars or teaching the sales team how to run webinars, or teaching the sales team how to use LinkedIn to do their job better, to help them sell more, to help them build better relationships. And at the bottom of the funnel, again, traditionally not necessarily the marketer's job, but customer experience matters, and sometimes content and education becomes key in there. So again, that URL, same URL, as you're building through these different areas, these are some standard activities to consider. Again, think of it like a checklist. So if you're going through and building your plan, there may be some things in there you haven't thought to do previously. And a really important philosophy behind this is, every campaign you run is basically just a series of projects. So let's say you're running a lead generation campaign in Q2, so maybe a Q2 lead gen campaign. What we always try and do is have a singular goal for that campaign. Because if I look at our agency and we have 20, 25 clients at any given time, I will go to the account manager and say, okay, just tell me the 5 active campaigns we're running, and tell me the 5 goals of each of those campaigns and how are we helping achieve those goals. So forget all the 40 metrics we're worried about, forget the funnels. you're paying money as a marketer, or you're running them yourself. You're running campaigns. Have a goal value for them and monitor progress against that goal. And when you're done, look and say, did we succeed or didn't we, and why not? So that's one of the things, and I know a lot of people don't do it. They don't have that one metric and they don't have that one goal value. If you're using software, it could look something like this. So this is actually, again, in HubSpot. They have campaigns, so you can tag something as a campaign, and it'll track every activity. So you can see landing pages, calls to action, emails, blog posts, social messages, keywords. Those are showing all the different elements of that campaign, and it's reporting performance of each of those areas. And it's showing that overall, that inbound launch campaign brought 22,000 visits, 346 new contacts, and 3 new customers. So as a marketer, you now know the impact that that campaign had. And then the final thing is, when you're building marketing strategy, we like to think of it, you can build campaigns in 2 buckets. There's builders, which are laying the groundwork for future success. So like blogging, it's not going to have an impact tomorrow if you launch a blog today. It's building a foundation. Social media, same way. You're oftentimes building for long-term success. And then you have drivers, things that you look at, you go in, you say, okay, we have a database of 5,000 leads we've never nurtured. What if we put a 5-part email campaign in to send them over the next 6 weeks? We run a webinar with a call to action to sign up for the webinar. Let's see what happens in the next 6 weeks. That's a driver. So we think about builders are marathons, drivers are sprints. You need a mix of both of them as a marketer. If you're a young company and you don't have any assets in place, you don't have any collateral, you don't have any premium content for them to download, you're going to be spending a lot of your time building for the future. If you're an early growth company, and these are just hypothetical, this is what your model should be, you may be more closer to 50-50. And then if you're a high growth company and it's all about next month or this quarter's earnings, if you're publicly traded, if you've got VC money, this is what we see. There's this immediacy. It's got to hit. We know blogging is really important, but if we can choose between 20 more leads next month or 3 more blog posts, I'm taking the 20 leads. It's not always the right decision, but it's the necessary decision if you're in a high growth mode. So I'll end with a case study. We have a client out of Germany that's the world's largest manufacturer of 3D mice. So anything that uses CAD design, architecture, gaming, 3D printing, they would use this mouse. It's basically, you have a normal mouse in one hand, you have a 3D mouse in the other. It's like being able to reach into the screen with your hand and manipulate an object. So they came to us, they wanted to generate new leads, they wanted to segment and prioritize a database of 10,000 plus contacts. If it's if it's an organization that's fewer than 10 CAD users, they want to drive those people to the web store to buy online. If it's more than 10 users, like a GE, for example, probably has 10,000 CAD users, then they want an enterprise salesperson to touch that opportunity. So we designed a program based largely on a PR play. We were going to publish an industry report on CAD design, but we were going to use content marketing to do it. So the thought was, all right, let's do a survey. We have this database of 10,000 people. Let's survey them and ask about their CAD design usage, and we'll publish a state of the industry in CAD design report. Publicize it through media relations, promote it through the database and social. The difference here is the survey was run through a landing page on the marketing automation platform. Every answer they gave went to their CRM record, and we then in the back end had automated lead scoring in place that calculated the probability of them buying from us based on the responses they were giving to the survey. So you can see here, how many CAD users do you have in the organization? That was the main trigger. As soon as they said they had 11 to 50 or more, it immediately became an enterprise opportunity. If they had fewer than 10, then they got dropped into a web opportunity. As a benefit to doing this, we were giving them a secondary offer. We were going to give them a free ebook on a topic relevant to CAD design. So these are all the pieces that went into building the strategy for this program. There was segmenting the database, figuring out who those 10,000 people were, what would be important to them, a lead scoring system, the survey, a landing page to send them to. We had the 10,000 plus contacts. We wanted to figure out the subject line in the email that would work best. So we ran an A/B test where 500 people got one subject line, 500 people got the other. The subject line that worked best is the subject line we used for the other 9,000 people. So it's all of these things, and all made possible by technology. This isn't like things we magically created. We had the tech to do this. Social, sales, media. In the first 2 weeks, this was mind-boggling to me, because on that A/B test of 1,000, we actually hit the sample size we were trying to get. Our goal was to get like 400 responses. We had more than that on the A/B test. So once we sent out to everybody, we had almost 2,000 survey responses. That secondary CTA said, hey, thanks for taking the survey. We'll let you know when the industry report's ready. In the meantime, you can download this ebook. Almost 2,500 people downloaded that. 1,700 new contacts came into the system. We were able to nurture those 10,000. 2,500 we were able to send into the web store lead funnel, and 1,100 or more into the enterprise sales opportunity. All from just a piece of content. But it was taking that integrated approach, knowing what sales valued, you're able to build an entire program around it. So just to recap, start with an assessment of the organization. Figure out what your strengths and weaknesses are. You can, a standard SWOT analysis may do. Figure out where the assets are that can drive success more quickly for your organization. Build a scorecard, just to have a process of how you're going to visualize this data and figure out what it means and have it inform action. And then from there, build a more intelligent and informed strategy. So while it's kind of overwhelming to think about everything that's happening and the challenges that we have as marketers, what we're realizing is that anything is becoming possible. As a marketer, the technology is now making things possible that weren't possible 5 years ago. We can do things in entirely new ways and in entirely new opportunities to impact an organization and create value. With that, I will turn it over to questions. I think we got about 9 minutes for questions. And like I said, I will be around all afternoon and evening too if you want to touch base then. So thank you. I don't know if we have a mic, so if anybody has a question, we could probably just yell it out and I can repeat it if we don't hear it. Yes, Becca.
Thank you, that was very interesting.
Thank you.
And then I wanted to tell you that I researched patios as well, and I ended up with aggregated concrete, and I absolutely love it.
We'll have to trade emails because I have not made a decision. I'm not at the intent to decision phase yet. I'm still in the consideration phase.
My question is that you mentioned, I think, 2 different kinds of trainings that are available for free.
Yeah.
Google Analytics, and there was the other one. Can you reiterate what the second one is?
Yeah, so again, if you guys didn't get a copy of the book, everybody gets a free copy of the book here. There's a whole chapter on building an internal academy, and in that chapter, I think it's 4 or 5. There are like 10 different online sources. There's a lot of free academy, like Content Marketing Institute offers a ton of training. The one in particular you're asking about is HubSpot. They have free inbound marketing training. You don't have to be a HubSpot customer. It's just teaching you inbound methodology, and that you can actually get a certification for. Colin, hey Colin, if you did inbound marketing certification, right? Yeah, so if you want to talk to Colin, I know and did you do Google Analytics too?
Halfway there.
All right. So yeah, those are the 2, but that chapter was designed for organizations that want to teach their team or people that want to teach themselves a bunch of different resources that are available.
Thank you.
Sure. Anybody else have a question? Sorry to call you out, Colin. Yes, over here.
Okay, I'm still a little overwhelmed on like where to even begin.
Yeah.
So for someone who's trying to learn as much as you possibly can, where do you recommend starting?
So the question is, if you're overwhelmed, there's so much to take in, and where do you start? Honestly, I would start with what the question she just asked. Where are those sources where we can learn more? Because you're not going to figure it all out. I mean, honestly, if I go away for 3 days, sometimes I feel like I missed everything. Like yesterday I was traveling here with my family. We took a road trip down, and Google apparently announced something that's supposed to transform mobile, like some new Android-related technology. And so part of me last night, it's like midnight, my kids finally go to sleep. I'm like, I should really read up on what Google announced because I feel like I should know that when I go in there tomorrow. It's impossible to keep up. So you need to figure out the areas where you want to focus your energy. Like, do you have a strong interest in analytics and you want to become sort of more metrics driven? Then go find the best resources to learn more about analytics. So what we do internally is we have an academy we've created that has universal training, like everyone has to get Google Analytics certification, everyone has to get inbound, but then we go based on interest levels. Like, do you want to become a better writer? If so, here's the 10 resources the agency recommends to hone your writing skills. If you have an interest in analytics, here's the 3 books we recommend reading and the 5 online courses that you can take. There's so many resources, it can be extremely overwhelming. You could spend your entire day just reading blog posts and you would be further ahead, but not necessarily in the direction you want to go. So I would say hone your interest areas and then identify the best influencers and training resources to help you keep moving that direction. In the back?
Yeah, so I work for a company in Utah that's 30 plus years old now. And as a result, I work for older people
Sure.
who have been there since 1984, and they tend to think it's still 1984. And so as I'm listening to this and trying to think about how this could be applicable, you know, in my department, in my region at work, I'm wondering what's a good way to, you know, where's a good entry point? What's a good starting point to introduce something like an internal marketing academy or some of these things that these folks maybe, if I hit them with it all, at first they'd be a disaster.
Their eyes are rolling by the third slide.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'd be done and on to whatever.
The thing I always advise, and if anybody hear the question, is basically if you have an organization that's not willing to transform or interested, how do you move them forward? Figure out the trigger, what matters to them. If it's revenue and profit, if that's all they want to hear about, then do your research and figure out how making a change will impact those numbers. This is, I mean, I started talking about social media and doing conferences in like 2007, 2008, and I've done like real estate professionals, and I've done banks, and I've done marketing events. Like, you go over the place and you start realizing it just doesn't matter. Like Twitter, Facebook, content marketing, automation, these are just terms that us as marketers latch onto and start throwing around because they mean something to us. Sit down with a CEO and he or she is like, I don't care if we're on Twitter or Facebook, if you're using remarketing or retargeting, like, are you driving sales? Like, is what you're doing as marketing and asking for, is this automation system that's going to cost me $2,000 a month going to generate $5,000 a month in revenue within 12 months? If it is, cool. Take a shot at it. You got 12 months to figure it out. So always go to who are the decision makers and what are the triggers that they care about, or what are their pain points, and then work backwards and just win with data. Like, at the end of the day, if you're in an organization that's just, they're very logical and they will listen to logic and you don't necessarily have to, great. Most of the times you have to win with business data though. And the data is out there now. It's just finding those right resources. And I think probably one time for one more, if anybody else has one. Okay, thank you again.